So today we're going to be having a little look at Lords of Waterdeep. It's a game of worker placement in the Dungeons & Dragons era for 2 to 5 players. Okay guys, so to set up a game of Lords of Waterdeep, first we're going to put all of the buildings in the building stack down here. Everything's labelled, so again the intrigue deck is going to say intrigue deck, your quest deck is going to say quest deck, and you have discard spaces for everything that you're going to have. Also, with the amount of meeples that you use in the game, with the amount of agents, you're going to take that amount and you're going to place one of them down here that will be activated in the 5th round. Furthermore, you're going to have to put 3 gem tokens on the round markers. These will be put on the buildings after a round is done. Also, you're going to want to place all of your cubes in the middle. Here we have fighters, rogues, wizards, and clerics. And then also on your tableau, you're going to put your agents in the pool up here. And then you've got your symbols for when you take a building and control it. Okay, so the player that goes first in this case, the rules state that the last person to have visited a city, obviously you just roll a dice or something like that. The first player token is going to be this cool little castle. That in this case is going to go to the Silver Stars player. That person then gains 4 gold to start the game with. And then in a clockwise fashion, everybody that goes next after that first player gets an extra gold. So the second player would get 5, third player would get 6, etc. You also get dealt 2 quest cards. So in this case, you put this in your active quests. So 1 and 2 here, and then another 2 down here on the left-hand side of your tableau. You also get dealt 2 intrigue cards that go face down next to the tableau, which is kept secret. Also, you're going to take a Lord of Waterdeep at random. Basically, these are going to tell you which types of quests you gain the benefit from at the end of the game. So, for example, in this case, we have Kiriani Agrava, who, if you play an Arcana or a Piety quest, you get a little bit of extra money at the end of the game. That then goes underneath here and underneath here. Right, so at the start of a round, you're going to be placing all of the buildings in the Builders Hall, so we have a full complement of buildings. Let's say you started a new round, you would take these 3 gems and put them onto the Builders Hall. This basically means that you've got a little bonus for taking those tiles. Now, in terms of how we do the actions, the first player would take a meeple, or your agent, and you would put it on one of these slots that tells you a specific benefit for how you can play the game. So, the aim of the game in this case, you'll have your quests that tell you what type of requirements you're going to need. So, for example, in this one, procure the stolen goods, you'll need 3 rogues and 6 money. So, in this case, you might be thinking, right, I need some rogues. So, in this case, I'm going to explain everything on the board and how it works. Quite simply, you put one of your agents down on the spot and you take the reward. In this case, I've gone to the Grinning Lion Tavern and I get to take 2 rogues and put them in my tavern. So to explain the rest of these spots, what we have here is the plinth. This would give you 1 cleric that you could put into your tavern. The Aurora's Realm Shop, you simply gain 4 gold from the bank. The Builder's Hall is an interesting one. You pay the cost in the top left of the building. You're essentially then going to take that building and any of the points that are on top of it. In this case, you would now move your points up by 1. You then put this on any slot on the board, and then you take the relevant symbol and attach it to it. This now becomes a new area that you can play. To get all of the rules for these buildings, please consult the rulebook and I'll tell you exactly how to follow through on that one. Okay, so in this case, if you then want to get 2 fighters, you would go to the Field of Triumph, quite aptly named, take 2 fighters, place them in your tavern. To gain a wizard, you would go to the Blackstaff Tower, take the appropriately purple cube, put it in your tavern. Castle Waterdeep is quite cool, so you would now take the first player marker from whoever currently has it, place it next to you. You would now go first for the next rounds, and you would also take an extra intrigue card and put it in your hand. Now, speaking of intrigue cards, the only way that you can play them in the base game is to go to Waterdeep Harbour. So, for example, if you're the first person to go to Waterdeep Harbour, this means you can now play an intrigue card. Like, all the symbolism in Lords of Waterdeep is fairly good. You're now going to take an intrigue card that you want to play. There are basically kind of a few types that you can play. You're going to have various, what I'd call, normal intrigue cards. So, for example, in this one, each opponent removes a black cube or a rogue from his or her tavern and returns it to the display. For each opponent that could not do so, they take 2 gold from the bank and put it into their supply. So at this point that would then happen. You put that into the entry discard, and then that is your go. Subsequently this would stay here. So let's say one of the Harper's players then went into the second space. They could then play one of their entry cards. Let's say they had a mandatory quest. A mandatory quest basically means that you're giving this to another player and they can't complete any more quests until they've completed this quest. It normally has 3 requirements in terms of your quest givers. Awful. Quest givers. Okay, so in this case, on the second spot here, the Harpers have chosen to also play an entry card. They've chosen to play a mandatory quest, which is slightly different. So they're still a quest card. In this case, they are worth very little points compared to a lot of the other quests, and they have a requirement for how many of the different people you're going to need to complete that quest. They must complete this quest before continuing on with a lot of their other quests. Basically slows them up. This, again, once done, does not go into the completed quest pile like this. It goes into the intrigue discard pile. Cool, so in this section we're going to talk about how you gain new quests. So for example, in the agent pool over here, I'm going to take one of my agents. If I go to this slot here, I get to take one of the available quests and 2 gold. If I go to this slot here, I gain a quest from one of the 4 and gain an entry card. Or here, I can reset the bunch. This goes into the quest discard. I can then put another 4 out. And this means I must choose one of the 4 to continue on with the task. Once I've taken one of these quests, I then put it into my active quests, and then I replay from the quest supply to bring it back up to full. In the rare occasion when you go through every single one of your quests, you would then shuffle the discard and make a new quest pile. Right, so in terms of completing these quests, anytime that you place an agent down and then take its benefit, if you have everything you need to complete that quest, you can then pay a quest requirement and you can get the reward for that quest. So in this case, I need 3 rogues and I need 8 gold. So let's say I have the 8 gold here, so we have a 5 denomination here, along with the 3 singles. I'll then pay that gold, put the 3 rogues back in. I've now completed this. I would take the reward, in this case is 8 points, and I also get 2 entry cards, put them into my hand, put this into the completed pile down here. Now there is a slight little variation here if you have something that says plot quest on the bottom. A plot quest, once you've gained the reward and you've completed it, has an ability that will last for the rest of the game. You'll notice on the side of your tableau here, you can now put your plot quest and that will just remind you of that ability for the rest of the game. Fantastic. So one last thing to talk about is when you as an opponent go onto a building that is owned by someone else, that opponent gains the bonus at the bottom. So the owner in this case would gain an extra 2 points, so you simply going here would bump that up. There's various different variations of this, but again, consult the rulebook and it'll tell you exactly everything you need to know. So let's say we complete a round and everyone's gone to many different spaces. You'll notice that the Waterdeep Harbour now comes into play. So what we have here is the 1, 2 and 3 slots. These people basically get to put that agent down to an available space should they want to. So in this case, the Silver Stars player has come here. They've taken the first token and the entry card. This guy is going, right, I need a couple of fighters. I'm going to go to the Field of Triumph and I'm going to put them into my tavern. Basically giving you like an extra go at the end. However, a lot of the spots have been taken at that point. Cool, so in this case what we now have is we have the start of the next round. You reclaim the Builder's Hall, you take the round that you've completed in the markers, you put all of these gems out onto the buildings, making the previous buildings that haven't been taken a little bit more lucrative if you want those extra points. Again, from the first player marker, turns would go around clockwise, completing a whole round just as talked about, and you do exactly the same thing again. So at the end of the round, you essentially have like a little clear up phase where you take all of your guys back, put them into your agent pool, signifying the end of a round, so you can then take another go. As previously mentioned, let's say you've gotten to the 5th round. Once these have been placed out, we now release the agents in this pool. So in this case, the Harpers will gain another guy, our Silver Stars will gain another guy, giving you a little bit more to work with for the final 4 rounds, so you can kind of achieve a little bit more. You now proceed to play in exactly the same way that we've spoken about in the previous rules. Get right to the end of the 8th round, and then you tally up all of your scores. Again, with the completed quests, you would see if these match up with your Lord. So in this case, this Lord gives me 6 points for each building I control. So for every building I would try to get 6 points. Again, with the Lord over here, as we were just talking about, you get an Arcana and Piety quest, you gain another 4/4. Add up those bonus points. Whoever has the most points wins. Okay guys, so there we have it. That's everything you're going to need to learn the game of Lords of Waterdeep. We wish you the best in becoming the best Lord that you can be. There you go guys, so that's everything you're going to need to play something.